Finrod Felagund, the fairest and most beloved of the House of Finwë, founder and king of Nargothrond, friend of men and faithful oath-keeper. This legendary elf is the next figure I will discuss in this series dedicated to bravery, courage and heroism throughout the ages of Middle-earth. As I did with previous heroes, I will provide a brief background of Finrod's family tree and name, his history, importance in the story, and will discuss acts of heroism, demonstrating that this elf is one of the most impressive to ever walk in Arda. A scholar, warrior, traveller, teacher and king. This isn't a full history of Finrod by any means. I don't really do that on this channel. I recommend reading the Silmarillion for more about Finrod, but talking about his past is almost enough to justify on its own why Finrod is a hero. The name Finrod is Sindarin and comes from his father name Findarato, which in Quenya is estimated to mean hair champion. Finde, referring to hair or braid of hair, and his grandfather Finwë, as many of his descendants share some part of his name. Arato, meaning noble or champion. Felagund is an aftername or episse, a name that is given to an elf later in life and one that didn't have to be adopted as a true name. In this case it means hewer of caves and was apparently given to him by dwarves, taken from the Khuzdul Felakgundu and changed to fit in the style of Sindarin, Felagund. Felak being a tool like a chisel or small axe, and Gundu being an underground hall. But there is some speculation that this is a derogatory name, possibly given to Finrod by elves. Nonetheless, proud Finrod took on the name, becoming Finrod Felagund. Finrod is the son of Finarfin and Eärwin, and grandson of Finwë. Finwë being the first king of the Noldor, who came to Valinor from Middle-earth with Yngvi and Elve, becoming the one to lead the Noldor westward across Middle-earth and the Great Sea to Aman. Finrod's father, Finarfin, was the third king of the Noldor in Valinor, since Fëanor claimed the title following his father's death. Finarfin choosing to return to Valinor following the first kinslaying of elf against elf, and the doom of the Noldor. Like many of these figures I discuss in the first stage, the family tree of Finrod is full of legendary figures. Being related to Finwë gives him ties to the likes of Fingolfin, Fingon and Turgon. He is brother to Angrod and Ainur and Galadriel, the latter being a name that will be instantly recognisable to anyone familiar with the legendarium. And due to the complicated nature of the legendarium and choices made by Christopher Tolkien for the Silmarillion following the death of J.R.R. Tolkien, some may see the figure Orodrith as brother to Finrod, but this was a mistake, and Orodrith was Finrod's nephew. And Tolkien tells us that Finrod did not have any children of his own, nor a wife, as we find out in Nargothrond when his sister Galadriel visits him. King Finrod Felagund had no wife, and Galadriel asked him why this should be, but foresight came upon Felagund as she spoke, and he said, "An oath I too shall swear, and must be free to fulfill it, and go into darkness. Nor shall anything of my realm endure that a son should inherit." Much like Fingon, Fingolfin and Galadriel, Finrod was led from Valinor to Middle-earth by the flight of the Noldor, following the theft of the Silmarils and the murder of the High King Finwë by the Dark Lord Morgoth. Finrod and his brothers were said to be like brothers to the sons of Fingolfin, such was the strength of their friendship and bond. And, following the oath of Fëanor, Finrod stood with Orodrith, and he left Valinor at the rear of the company with Finarfin and many of the noblest and wisest of the Noldor, looking behind them to see the city they were leaving. And, more than any others of the exiles, they carried thence memories of the bliss they had forsaken, and some, even of the things that they had made there they took with them, a solace and a burden on the road. As I said earlier, this isn't a full history, but I cannot overstate the importance of Finrod's role in the first stage of Middle-earth, the deeds that would make him the traveller and teacher, a builder of towers and fortresses. Finrod was responsible for the construction of the mighty watchtower of Minas Tirith in the midst of the river upon the Isle of Tol Sirion, not the same Minas Tirith found in Gondor in later ages, responsible for holding the largest amount of territory among the Noldor in opposition to Morgoth and Angband. Minas Tirith was later known as Tol in Gaurhoth when it was captured by Sauron, the Isle of Werewolves. But an even greater work was the fortress of Nargothrond, a hidden fortress built on the river Narog in its caverns. Long it lay hidden from Morgoth's eyes until after Finrod had left. This great stronghold was influenced by the halls of Menegroth, the Thousand Caves, in Doriath. Then Finrod was filled with wonder at the strength and majesty of Menegroth, its treasuries and armories, and its many pillared halls of stone. And it came into his heart that he would build wide halls behind ever-guarded gates in some deep and secret place beneath the hills. The construction of one of the great fortresses of the First Age and his strong relationship with dwarves demonstrates Finrod's greatness, but he holds the special honour of being the first among the elves to meet the second-born, men. His fascination with language, exploration, and the peoples of Middle-earth led him to a special moment in the history of the children of Iluvatar. 3 centuries had passed since the Noldor arrived in Beleriand, and during a hunt with Maglor and Mithros, 2 of the sons of Fëanor, he passed alone towards the mountains of Ered Lindon, towards a shining light. He journeyed on and came into the north of Assyriand. He heard song and the singers singing in a language he had never heard before. These were men, the first to enter Beleriand. Finrod is said to have a love for them stir in his heart, and he watched them until they slept. Then he went among the sleeping people, and sat beside their dying fire where none kept watch. And he took up a rude harp, which Beor had laid aside, and he played music upon it such as the ears of men had not heard. For they had as yet no teachers in the art, save only the dark elves in the wild lands. The wisdom of his words blessed these men with greater wisdom in their own hearts, his foreign words being interpreted by each mind according to its measure. Visions of the making of Arda and the bliss of Valinor passed to them, and they named him Gnome, wisdom in their language. He remained among them and taught them true knowledge. They loved him and called him Lord, becoming ever loyal. It is no surprise that they thought of this figure as one of the rumoured Valar dwelling in the west, his words and music seeming magical to men, and why not? Finrod essentially proved to be a teacher and translator through the power of his music, wisdom and words. Their interaction transcended the need for a shared spoken language. This close relationship with the second-born has Finrod hold a special place in the history of that race. Friend of their leader, Beor, whose death was the elves' first introduction to mortal life and death through the passing of time. The mourning of a friend lost who would never return to them. His conversations with the wise woman Andrith, a debate concerning mortals and immortals, the body and soul, the afterlife, once again demonstrates Finrod's almost unique position in the world. Friend to all, seeker of knowledge when it comes to the mysterious second-born and their fate in Arda. Seeking understanding due to caring for them. That would be enough to have Finrod be counted among the great, but his relationship with the race of men led to a very special friendship and oath. There was the glorious battle, or Dagor Aglarib, the third battle in the Wars of Beleriand against Morgoth. Glorious because the Noldor were victorious against Morgoth's forces. Armies commanded by Fingolfin and Mithros attacked Morgoth's orcs from east and west, causing the last remnants of Morgoth's army to flee to Angband, then being cut down and destroyed. This led to the 4 centuries-long siege of Angband, where the evil of Morgoth was kept at bay. But little did his enemies know that in secret Morgoth devised new terrors, due to the inability of orcs alone to defeat the mighty Noldor and the heroes among them. Following a hasty attack by Glaurung, the father of dragons, there was peace, but this peace was shattered. Morgoth had long prepared a force, and as he stewed in Angband, his hatred and malice grew until he desired to not only destroy the Noldor, but their lands that had grown fair in his absence. This started with the burning of Ardgallan. The watchfires burned low, and the guards were few. On the plain, few were waking in the camps of the horsemen of Hithlum. Then suddenly Morgoth sent forth great rivers of flame that ran down swifter than Balrogs from Thangorodrim and poured all over the plain, and the mountains of iron belched forth fires of many poisonous hues, and the fume of them stank upon the air and was deadly. Thus Ardgallen perished, and fire devoured its grasses, and it became a burned and desolate waste, full of choking dust, barren and lifeless. Glaurung the dragon burst from Angband, fully grown, with a train of Balrogs and black armies of orcs. The fourth of the great battles had begun, Dagor Bragolach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. The siege of Angband had ended, and the sudden attack from Angband scattered Morgoth's enemies. With the sons of Finarfin bearing the brunt of the assault, Finrod's brothers Angrod and Angnor died. Bregolas of the house of Beor and many of the warriors of that people were slain. Barahir, the brother of Bregolas, fought near to the pass of Sirion. Finrod had hastened from the south and was cut off with a small company. It is said he would have fallen, or worse, been taken by Morgoth's forces to Angband. But Barahir and his bravest men rescued the friend of men, with a wall of spears surrounding him as they fought their way out. This led to Finrod returning to Nargothrond and swearing an oath of abiding friendship to Barahir and his kin, giving Barahir a ring he had carried with him from Valinor, which became known as the Ring of Barahir. Barahir later perished in the massacre at Tarn Iluin, his hand with the ring being cut off and taken by the orcs that had ambushed Barahir's outlaws, who had refused to flee Dorthonion, south of Ardgallen, despite Morgoth's growing strength. Barahir's son, Beren, swore vengeance and reclaimed the hand of his father and the ring of Barahir. And Beren's renown grew, as well as his infamy among the forces of Morgoth. Beren's own journey led him to Luthien and the desire to have her hand in marriage, which in turn led to the quest for the Silmaril. Now, Beren is a great hero himself, and the quest for the Silmaril is one of the most important events of the age, and will be discussed in Beren's own Heroes of the First Age video, but his own quest led him to the gates of Nargothrond and King Finrod. And Felagund knew him, needing no ring to remind him of the kin of Beor and of Barahir. Behind closed doors they sat, and Beren told of the death of Barahir, and of all that had befallen him in Doriath, and he wept, recalling Luthien and their joy together. But Felagund heard his tale in wonder and disquiet, and he knew that the oath he had sworn was come upon him for his death, as long before he had foretold to Galadriel. Finrod, in his wisdom, understood that the oath of Fëanor was at work, and the sons of Fëanor in his own realm had grown in power. The oath they had sworn to reclaim the Silmarils was now set against the oath Finrod had sworn to Barahir and his kin. When Beren's quest was revealed, Finrod was correct in thinking that Fëanor's sons would show no love nor mercy, and the curse of Mandos led to dark thoughts about Finrod's death and the usurping of his throne. And Felagund, seeing that he was forsaken, took from his head the silver crown of Nargothrond and cast it at his feet, saying, "Your oaths of faith to me you may break, but I must hold my bond. Yet, if there be any on whom the shadow of our curse has not yet fallen, I should find at least a few to follow me, and should not go hence as a beggar that is thrust from the gates." There were 10 that stood by him, and the chief of them, who was named Edrahil, stooping lifted the crown and asked that it be given to a steward until Felagund's return. "For you remain my king, and theirs," he said, "whatever betide." The most difficult part of discussing Finrod when it comes to heroism, courage and bravery is that there are so many moments during his time in Middle-earth. Would it be enough for me to say that removing his crown to honour an oath he swore is enough? I think so. To understand that even if this is a nigh impossible quest to claim a Silmaril, a quest he wisely determined was given to bring about Beren's death, that the oath shall be honoured. His support of the exiled Noldor does not overcome his honour, where the oath of Fëanor corrupts not only those who swore it, but those caught up in it. The oath of Finrod to Barahir comes from love and friendship, as Tolkien says, "By this ring, the token of a lasting bond, that Felagund of Nargothrond once swore in love to Barahir, who sheltered him with shield and spear, and saved him from pursuing foe on northern battlefields long ago." Swearing an oath is not to be taken lightly, But when it comes to the courage and heroism of Finrod, I want to discuss a famous moment in the Silmarillion. As Beren and Finrod continue on their quest for the Silmaril, they destroy a camp of orcs, with Finrod using his own wizardry to have his company appear disguised as orcs, attempting to evade capture from Sauron, who now dwelt on the Isle of Werewolves, Finrod's former watchtower. But Sauron doubted this company from his tower, and their failure to report to him as a commander sent there by Morgoth. He then sent a force to waylay them. Finrod, Beren and their small company were captured, and Finrod was brought before the seat of Sauron himself.
Thus befell the contest of Sauron and Felagund, which is renowned. For Felagund strove with Sauron in songs of power, and the power of the king was very great. But Sauron had the mastery, as is told in the Lay of Leithian. He chanted a song of wizardry, of piercing, opening, of treachery, revealing, uncovering, betraying. Then sudden Felagund there swaying, sang in a song of staying, resisting, battling against power, of secrets kept, strength like a tower, and trust unbroken, freedom escape, of changing and shifting shape, of snares eluded, broken traps, the prison opening, the chain that snaps. Backwards and forwards swayed their song, reeling, foundering, as ever more strong, the chanting swelled, Felagund fought, and all the magic and might he brought of Elveness into his words. Softly, in the gloom, they heard the birds, singing afar in Nargothrond, the sighting of the sea beyond the western world on sand of pearls on Elven land. Then in the doom gathered, darkness growing, in Valinor the red blood flowing, beside the sea where the Noldor slew the foam riders and stealing drew their white ships with their white sails. From lamplit havens the wind wails, the wolf howls, the ravens flee, the ice mutters in the mouths of the sea. The captives sad in Angband mourn, thunder rumbles, the fires burn, and Finrod fell before the throne. Then Sauron stripped from them their disguise, and they stood before him, naked and afraid. But though their kinds were revealed, Sauron could not discover their names or their purposes. He cast them therefore into a deep pit, dark and silent, and threatened to slay them cruel unless one would betray the truth to him. From time to time they saw two eyes kindled in the dark, and a werewolf devoured one of the companions, but none betrayed their lord.
I see this as one of the most courageous and bravest acts in the First Age. Finrod stands against a great foe, one who is said to have the mastery despite the king's great power. The protection of his companions, Beren included, having the king attempt to restrict Sauron from piercing his mind, from giving up his secrets, his identity, and the knowledge of the quest to take a Silmaril from the crown of Morgoth, Sauron's master. It is Finrod's history that is his downfall here. He battles against Sauron, backwards and forwards swayed their song, and all the magic and might he brought of Elveness into his words. But the first kinslaying, the evil of the oath and the departure from Valinor, brings Finrod to his knees. Despite not taking part in the kinslaying and not swearing the oath, he still departed, and did not return to Valinor. He still defended those exiles who did those deeds. His goodness when compared to certain figures among the exiles does not make him wholly innocent. There are consequences, especially when it comes to not heeding the warning of the Valar themselves. Even the greatest among the Noldor, which I would say includes Finrod, will suffer in some way, even as he faces it and accepts it. the doom of Mandos proclaiming that ye have spilled the blood of your kindred unrighteously, and have stained the land of Aman. For blood ye shall render blood, and beyond Aman ye shall dwell in death's shadow. Remember, this was spoken to the Noldor who rebelled, not just through the death of elves, but the rebellion against the Valar, not accepting the consequences or seeking pardon, forgiveness or absolution. And Finrod sees the red blood flowing in Valinor, seeing the past he left brought forward from his mind into this song of power. This does not in any way diminish the courage of Finrod. Fate would have the curse follow him and all others hearing those words, who continued on to Middle-earth, but at this moment he stands against Sauron to protect others, to redeem himself and fulfill an oath, not sworn in vengeance or anger, a definition of heroism in Middle-earth and beyond. Sauron through the contest understands that this is a figure of wisdom and power, and he cruelly wished to keep Felagund alive to the last, to reveal the secret of their errand, which Sauron did not manage to take from Finrod. A punishment that would have seen someone Finrod swore to protect, tortured and killed before his very eyes. As wolves slew the companions of Finrod and Beren one by one, the final moments of Finrod's life east of Valinor sum up this figure of great renown. As a wolf came for Beren to fulfill Sauron's wishes that Finrod be left last and alone, Finrod put forth all his power and broke free from his bonds, killing the great wolf with hands and teeth while suffering fatal wounds. Death came to Finrod in the fulfillment of an oath of friendship and love. Saving Beren's life allowed the quest for the Silmaril to continue, to have the Dark Lord himself lose a Silmaril, to have the black foe of the world be humiliated, challenged and later defeated. A sacrifice that saw an elf die to protect a mortal man. Finrod carrying love for the race of men since the moment he found them. And Finrod as he lay dying spoke to Beren, saying, I go now to my long rest in the timeless halls beyond the seas and the mountains of Aman. It will be long ere I am seen among the Noldor again, and it may be that we shall not meet a second time in death or life, for the fates of our kindreds are apart. Farewell. Finrod died in the dark in the corrupted version of the tower he built. The fairest and most beloved of Finwë's house redeemed his oath, and Beren mourned beside him in despair. What more can I say about this figure without just repeating myself? A friend to elves of different lands and clans, of dwarves, of men, the first elf witnessed by the men of the East, setting an almost impossible standard for the elves men would later meet. Being given the title of Friend of Men, which is unique, as we typically get introduced to elf friends among the race of men. His role in the quest for the Silmaril, leading to the marriage of a mortal man, Beren, and an elf, Luthien, which changed Arda even in the ages that followed their death. His role in the ennoblement of the race of men in the First Age, a scholar and teacher of music and language and wisdom, a warrior fighting against the forces of Morgoth in a war that could not be won, but still he fought, a king who would give up his crown for his honour, a builder and creator of wonders of Middle-earth, a figure who shows that not all oaths are evil or aim to drive you to evil deeds to fulfill it, with Finrod performing good deeds until his death, and leaving behind the legacy of his debate with Andrith, one of the greatest debates of philosophy, nature and destiny found within Arda. The list goes on. Talking about the heroism of Finrod is possibly the easiest task when it comes to this series, as you just need to talk about most of his deeds in life, and the legacy that followed his death. What became of Finrod following his heroic death? They buried the body of Felagund upon the hilltop of his own isle, and it was clean again, and the green grave of Finrod, Finarfin's son, fairest of all the princes of the elves, remained inviolate, until the land was changed and broken, and foundered under the destroying seas. But Finrod walks with Finarfin his father, beneath the trees in Eldamar. It has been a while since the last Heroes video, and I really hope you enjoyed this one. I still have many heroes to cover in not only the first age, but the second and third ages too, and hopefully you won't have to wait as long for the next one. I want to thank some supporters of the channel, Grant or Toolcast as prefers to be known, David, Joel, Oliver, Victus, Ailin and Patricia. Your continued support is really appreciated. I also want to thank Chris and Ralph for the great art that premiered here. If you want to support the channel, you can find links in the description to Patreon, or visit the channel's main page and become a member on YouTube, or just subscribe, which will help the channel grow. Supporters can get access to members-only live streams and private content, such as my appendices videos that accompany videos like this one. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll be back for the next chapter of the Red Book.